What up, man? You guys know where I am at today, out in DC. If you guys look behind me, we have the White House in the background. We should start. Ah, there it is. There we go. There's the White House, guys. So you guys know I'm traveling throughout the US, going to New York, Chicago, having fun here in DC right now. If you guys think about the irony here, is that you got the Sharia touting, anti-Zionist spouting content creator walking outside the White House sipping his coffee latte. By the way, this is a refill for 50 cents. I'm not the type of person to pay $5.99 for coffee. I get the coffee dirt cheap for like $1.99, and then I just keep on going for refills one after another. So Starbucks ends up actually losing money on me, especially since I use their internet a lot. So guys, today's video is going to be about the recent terrorist attacks that happened because of white supremacists. Now, a little bit about me before we get into the video is that I have been dealing with Mossad for well over 20 years. I first met Mossad agents when I was in the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. I worked with them out in Hollywood. So I know how these guys operate. And alright guys, getting into the video. Have you guys noticed that the same screenplay that the Zionists used about Islamist terrorism is now being used word for word, scenario by scenario, but for white supremacist terrorism? Now, if you still believe that 9/11 was pulled off by a bunch of 5'4", 99-pound, low IQ Arabs, I want you to PayPal me $1 billion right now, because I'm going to give you the deed to a 7-mile bridge in Key West. 9/11 was never ever about the big bad Arab. You see, Ahmed in Saudi Arabia, who rides around on a camel all day, he is not a threat to the Zionist imperative. Ali, who lives here in America, works a 9-to-5 job and lives a blue pill beta life like nobody else, he is not a threat to the Zionist imperative. The real threat to Zionism are white, male, red-blooded, gun-toting Christian men. That's the real threat to Zionism. 9/11 simply was the Zionist long reach around to come after the white man. Almost 20 years after 9/11, we are now seeing the Zionist master plan, the ultimate Zionist master plan, come into fruition, which is to silence and eventually eliminate white men who are a nuisance to their master plot. Have you guys noticed that under Obama we had ISIS, and ISIS was taking over the Middle East? In fact, ISIS had strongholds here in America that at any time terrorist attacks can happen here in America, and we did have terrorist attacks happening multiple times a month here in America under Obama's administration. And when Trump came into power, all of a sudden ISIS disappeared. It's like they no longer existed. Same thing with Black Lives Matter, if you think about it. And now we have white supremacist terrorism that just came out of nowhere. Now, what the Zionists are doing is that they are fabricating information. What makes Mossad so formidable is two things. Number one, it is intel gathering. Mossad does an amazing job at gathering intelligence. If you ever been to a mall and you see these kiosks in the middle of the mall, and you wonder how the hell do these people make money. It's because these people are Mossad agents. They work in those kiosks where they sell Moroccan oil and sand, sea salt from the Black Sea. These guys are there to interact with the American people. These guys are there to observe and report back to Mossad on the pulse of the American people. So intel gathering is the number one tool for Mossad. The second tool for Mossad is fabrication. In fact, Mossad's motto is, by way of deceit, thou shalt cause war. It is beyond the scope of this video to get into the whole why the Zionists are doing what they are doing. That will be saved for another video. We are going to be talking about how is it that Mossad is able to recruit these terrorists, whether they are Islamist terrorists or they are white supremacist terrorists. If you take notice of these terrorists, a couple of things come into mind. Number one, they usually come from a broken family. Number two, they usually are on some sort of psychiatric medication. Now, what you guys need to understand is that the vast majority of shrinks here in America are Zionists, and there is no patient-doctor confidentiality when it comes to dealing with a Zionist shrink. Furthermore, the synagogues here in America are by membership only. You see, a synagogue in America, unlike a church or a mosque, not anybody can walk into. You need to have a membership, and you need to have somebody vouch for you for them to accept you into their synagogue. If you try to waltz into a synagogue without a membership, they will have you arrested for trespassing. So, how this plays out? You have a Zionist shrink. He goes over to the synagogue. He meets with Mossad over there, and he says, hey, I have this Ahmad, or I have this John Smith, and he's depressed. I got him on all this medication. You can do with him whatever you want. If you guys remember, a couple of years ago, there was an epidemic of bath salt where people literally went crazy, turning into zombies and eating the face of other people. I've actually experienced a person on bath salt, and I know he was on bath salts because his friends told me he was on bath salt. Now, I was driving cab at the time back in LA. I was going down Hollywood Boulevard. I picked up a group of young, well-to-do co-eds, and the guy sitting next to me, he was totally out of his mind, and he was like, I want to race you. And I'm like, what do you mean you want to race me? He's like, you drive the cab and I'm gonna run next to you. And I'm like, are you effing crazy, dude? Sit the F down. So he's like, well, I want to go sit in the back with my friends. Now, you have to keep in mind, I was driving a van at the time. So I said to him, okay, let me pull over and you can go sit in the back with your friends. Now, this guy didn't want to wait. What he did was something I never witnessed before. He climbed out of the passenger window, got on top of the van. Now, this guy's on the roof of the van. I'm going down Hollywood Boulevard at like 1 o'clock at night. I'm going down at 30 miles an hour. If I was to hit the brake or this guy was to fall off for whatever reason, he would be dead. Fortunately, he was able to climb down the window and get into the back seat with his friends. Now, immediately after that, I just stopped the cab and said, you guys have a great day. And that was the end of that. Now, this guy, had you given this guy a machine gun and told him, go down Hollywood Boulevard and have fun, he would have had fun, if you know what I mean. When Mossad locks in a target, they start building a profile around him. This is no different than creating a Hollywood movie. I don't know if any of you have ever been into a production office where you make up a movie. I've actually been in many production offices back in Hollywood where people would simply mudsling ideas and scenarios and character names and backstories. So what Mossad does when they get the target that they want to use for a terrorist attack, they start building up a profile for him. And I'm going to give you an example, guys. I run a website called MGTOW.cafe. It's a forums. And as the site administrator, as the owner of that forums, what forbids me from going there, creating this false profile and saying, oh yeah, this terrorist, he came onto my website and look at his manifesto, look at what he wrote, right? What happens with a lot of these terrorists is that Mossad creates, better yet, Mossad actually fabricates false profiles, and then they have the media say, oh, look at the terrorist, look at his manifesto, look at the stuff he's been saying, the stuff he's been posting online. And you need to understand something. What Zionism is and what Mossad is, Zionism is an evil ideology, okay? Zionists are the ones who control the media. Zionists are the ones who run the White House right there behind me. In fact, they run it through an organization called AIPAC. If you don't know what AIPAC is, do your own research, people. Mossad is an institute. It's a lot like the CIA. So it's the job of Mossad to kickstart whatever action is needed for the Zionists to make their agendas come into fruition. Have you noticed how quickly the media, after one of these terrorist attacks takes place, how quick the media is to report that their friends were saying, oh my God, this guy was such a horrible person. He was always talking about raping women. He was always talking about having a hit list, a rape list. I was reading the news the other day about one of the terrorists, and one of the girls said, oh yeah, this guy hated me because I rejected him. What's happening here, gentlemen, is that Mossad wants to close down everything that has free and uncensored speech, where people can get together and talk out of Zionist-controlled spaces. For example, the Zionists, they closed down 8chan the other day. So what forbids the Zionists coming into saying, oh look, this website over there, it has terrorists and it has all these extremists. Let's shut that website down. Now Mossad has absolutely no problem carrying out false flag operations and killing innocent people. Now the vast majority of you probably are too young to know this, but during the war of 1967, the Zionists, they sank an American ship called the USS Liberty. They sunk it and they said to the Americans, hey, the Egyptians, they are the ones who sunk your ship. Join us in the war against the Egyptians. But unfortunately for the Zionists, the Americans who survived, they said, we saw with our eyes Israeli jets continuously bombard our ship, even though we made radio contact with them, and we said, hey, we are an American ship, we are a friendly ship, we have nothing to do with the war. They continued to sink us. Now of course, the administration back then in 1967, I think it was Lyndon B. Johnson, he swept it under the rug and never made anything out of it. So you can only imagine how the current administration, or any administration for that matter, 50 years ago would be very, very subservient to the Zionists. So to conclude this video, what I would say to Mr. Trump is that these terrorist attacks are going to happen more often than you can imagine. And here is what you do. You immediately take a blood sample of these terrorists. Find out if they have any medication in their system, or if they have had any psychiatric medication, especially if they have seen a shrink. Because if they saw a shrink whose last name was a Berg or a man, I guarantee you Mossad knew about these terrorists. Moreover, gentlemen, when you read news from the mainstream media such as New York Times, Yahoo, CNN, especially if they are pushing a agenda, like saying, oh, the guy is an incel, he hated women, he went onto an extremist website, he had extremist views, and this is actually something that we're going to be seeing soon. If you guys remember, during the time of ISIS, they had Abu Bakr Baghdadi, that Islamist terrorist, were pledging their alliance to, like Omar Mateen. Now, I personally knew Omar Mateen, and trust me, Omar Mateen is anything but a Muslim. In fact, his father was a FBI agent. So this just goes to show you that Mossad knows who to work with. So getting to the point, guys, if you are reading Yahoo News, CNN, New York Times, and you see a agenda being pushed like really hard, just like Hollywood tries to push female-led movies onto us, look at the name of the reporters. If the name of the reporter ends with Man, Stein, or Berg, understand it's false news. Mark my words, gentlemen, just like we saw Abu Bakr Baghdadi as some sort of shady Muslim terrorist, Islamist messiah, we are going to see a white national supremacist messiah. And you heard it here first. And understand, when we see this white supremacist messiah, understand that is simply a Mossad fabrication. Alright guys, so after a couple of these refills, it's time for me to go use the restroom. Hopefully the president would let me use the one in the Oval Office. Take care of yourselves.